Welcome to another episode of the Geek and I podcast. This week's a special edition of the Geek and I podcast, our Halloween episode. Ooh. And here's my co-host, the ever dapper Jeff Dickinson from the Collector Zone on YouTube.
Thank you guys for having me back on this wonderful Halloween show.
I think you're overreacting a little bit there. This episode of the Geek and I podcast, we are part of the Geek News Now podcast network. You can find them online, geeknewsnow.net. That is where you get all your geeky information, news, and polls to find out where you stand and what your ultimate geekdom is. We are sponsored by Sumner Twins Talent. Find them on Facebook at facebook.com/Sumner Twins. And we are also sponsored by Metallic Dice Games. For everything you need for your gaming experience, use code GNN at checkout and save 10%. And you can find us, the Geek and I podcast with John and Jeff, at facebook.com/Geek and I podcast. So, Jeff, who do we have on this special Halloween edition of the Geek and I podcast?
Today, we have Hollywood horror royalty. Something wicked this way comes. The madman himself, Larry Butler.
Oh, hello, folks.
Jeff, I don't know if you think you're getting paid extra for that, but I'll put an extra piece of candy in your trick or treat bag for that one.
Yeah, he's
I'm glad you liked it.
So, Mr. Butler, how are you, sir?
Oh, great! I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. That's the main thing.
Yes, that's always a good thing when the toes are pointed horizontal and not vertical, I guess, right?
Yes, every day is a good day. I wake up and greet the world. I check the obituary column to see if I'm in it.
So
I usually double check the silver alert to make sure my name's not being announced.
Right. So,
Yes, misspelled.
Tell us a little bit about yourself for those folks out in the audience that might not know you as well as Jeff does.
How do I begin? I ran away from home at the age of 4. Police chief brought me home and scolded my mother for scolding me, so I would never ran away again. And I began acting in elementary school. I used to write my own plays. I used to act with a group of other would-be actors. And then I went to summer camp and did some performances. And then I promptly forgot all about it. In high school, I got very shy. In college, I went out for a play just to try my luck. And found out I got the role and was too scared to go and do the play. And that was the end of that. And so I didn't become an actor until I was 35 and was working in a salvage yard. And everybody told me I was very funny because I was doing a little stand-up comedy at night. And they said, you need an agent. So I was so green, I didn't even know what an agent was, but I did find out where to go. And since I was working in a salvage yard, I had a beard, I had grimy fingers and hands. And the woman who, interviewed me actually climbed the chair to get away from me. She was that terrified of me. So they made me shave the beard off. They taught me how to use a knife and fork and stop dragging my knuckles when I walked. And I started getting work right away. So, I started out in comedy. I did a lot of commercials, a lot of print. Denver at the time was the print capital of the world. So I did a lot of international things. Started doing regional commercials, then national, became Ford national spokesman, Coors Beer national spokesman. And then I got a movie called The Women's Club that Warner Brothers came to town from Hollywood. And so I got the biggest role anybody ever had in Denver. Worked with Maud Adams, Michael Pare, and Eddie Velez, who were big at the time. This was the mid 80s. And then I came to Hollywood on the strength of that. That was my breakthrough role. And then I found out how hard it really was. It's not easy in Hollywood. So a lot of people come from all over, different states, and they find out, it's a revolving door. They usually go home in 6 months. They come with stars in their eyes, and they go home with their dragging their tail between their legs. But I would not do it. I swore that I would never leave, no matter how hard it got. So I've been here over 30 years. And it's a little easier now to get work than it was when I was started, but I still did a lot of TV projects and things like that, and worked with a lot of great actors like Richard Chamberlain, Raymond Burr, John Ritter, John Denver. You name it. I could go on and on. I don't have the list in front of me, but I just finished a movie with Courtney Gaines, who was the star of Children of the Corn, and he was in Back to the Future, and that was the thrill. So anyway, but you want to know more about my private life, or? Well,
you had mentioned that it's easier to get work now. Is that because of your resume makes it easier now to get work, or is it because there's just everybody and their uncle is making TV shows and putting it on their streaming service? Which, is it a combination of both, or?
I'd like to think longevity? So. Everybody at my age is dead, so I'm the only one left. That's probably more like it.
We need an old guy. G. Larry.
Larry's available. Let's call him. So it seems like for every wrinkle I get another job, and but it might be all three. Because a lot of people won't stop acting, and as long as I'm still, not too frail, even if I'm frail, tie me to a chair, give me a line, and I'm in. Once you get the bug, you never want to quit. It's like Eli Wallach. Who's some of the other older actors? Ernest Borgnine, Mickey Rooney.
Well, there was one person that come to mind when I first met you, and we had a long conversation. It was about Vincent Price. He was one of my horror heroes. Can you please share the story you shared with me about the madman himself, Vincent Price?
I'd be glad to, yeah. I first met Vincent Price in 1986 in Orlando, Florida. I was a aspiring poet, even though I despised poetry in high school, the way they taught it, all about butterflies and flowers and stuff. I said, if I want to do poetry, I want people to sit up and take notice and, pee their pants. So I did a whole book. I published a book on the strength of a poem I wrote called Here Lies Madness. It has to do with politics. It might be apropos to the times, but it was done in the 80s, the Reagan era. And so a lot of people would complain about things quietly, but they're afraid to take action on it. So I thought, I'm going to write a poem about people who are the silent majority. And so I entered a contest. It was called The World of Poetry. And I won one of the grand prizes. And Vincent actually gave it to me. He was the one that presented it to me. And he said, I wasn't able to get a picture with him because I tried to give my camera to another person who was on the stage, I think Myra Angelou, but she didn't know how to work a camera or something. And so I didn't get a picture. And he said, don't worry. In a couple of days, we'll get another picture, because it was a week-long thing. But I had to go back. I had to fly back and do a pickup on a commercial I just run. So I missed the rest of the poetry convention. I never got my picture with Vincent Price. Really upset me greatly. But I think one of these days I'll find somebody who took a picture. I think it was the Orlando Free Press or something, or one of the newspapers. And then he was quite a gentleman, not like you see him on screen. And he was very delightful, actually. And he's a poet himself, very literate person. And then when I got a role in a movie called Frankenstein versus the Creature from Blood Cove, the director told me, you're going to be the new Vincent Price. Right? I see something in you that reminds me of him. And while I was doing the movie, they did a special surprise appearance of Vincent Price as a ghost. They had somebody in a mask, and created kind of a ghostly appearance. And that was pretty special. So I guess I've interacted with Vincent a few times in my life, and he encouraged me to continue. And that's why I wrote the book. That was my first poem, and I recently published a book called Here Lies Madness, and Jeff has it. And I can read you the poem if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Just, I need my spectacles. This is something that I wrote in 1986, so it's been a while, but see, it might be appropriate for today's times. I used to know it by heart, but when I used to do readings all around Los Angeles, reason runs riot, justice howls at the moon. I've been found insane, it seems, for I whistle another tune. Sitting here so passively, I know that I'm not well. I'm afraid to confront the patriots that are taking us straight to hell. I've worried, I've whimpered, I've wrestled with the truth as it seems to me. To grope, to gripe, to grovel, it takes a true conspiracy. What's right, I scream in silence. Is it you or is it me? To protect and preserve our values is a great responsibility. I'm pointed to and scoffed at. My God, man, are you mad? No, by Jove, I'm truly sane. It's the rest that have gone bad. Why have you turned the tables and made righteousness seem so wrong? You've lost that sense of virtue that we fought for all along. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, excellent. That is excellent.
Anyway,
like you said, it feels like it could be written today.
Yes, it's timely.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to choose sides or anything. But whatever side you're on, get out there and vote and make your voice heard. Mm-hmm. Don't just sit there and complain silently to yourself or to your neighbor. Get out there and do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like things.
Yeah, right. And it's like, you know what? You don't like the food I put on the table? There's the kitchen.
That's right.
Go make it yourself.
Absolutely.
So who are some of the other big names? Like, growing up was Vincent Price one of like an icon that you looked up to? Who else was there?
Absolutely.
Well, in your circle.
We got our TV in 53, one of the first on our block. So I used to grow up watching a lot of Westerns. Westerns were big back then. But I never worked with anybody. I've met some of them. But the one that I remember the most was Richard Chamberlain. I never thought I'd get to work with him. But I did a movie called Dream West, I think the title was, where he plays General Fremont, who explores the route to the Rockies. And I play one of his cavalry officers. And he was just coming off a film called Solomon's Mines, King Solomon's Mines. So he was a little, he was on some kind of medication. So he was a little more brash than he was normally. I use that word because I don't know what else to say, but everybody didn't know that he was gay at the time. He's since come out. But at the time, he was, really chasing men all over the place. And they were allowing it. But that was kind of a shock to some of us. But anyway, no matter what, we liked him and we wanted to work with him. And I got 6 pictures with him with a camera that you threaded. The old sight camera that you had to insert and it went around and around and around. But mine, somehow when I threaded it, it didn't hold. So it flipped, nothing caught. I got no pictures. I was really upset when I got home and found that out. But 30 years later, I met Richard in a convention, and we got our picture after 30 years, and I've got it on my wall. So I was really delighted, and he remembered me. It'd been a long time, but And then somebody else that I was really I idolized. It was Raymond Burr from Perry Mason.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did 3 movies with him. I had a scene with him on one movie. And so I got to work with him. Robert Guillaume was another person you probably remember. And David Hasselhoff.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and then, I mean, this is unbelievable story. You remember Spartacus? And Kirk Douglas was hanging from the cross, and his wife was down there crying. That was Gene Simmons, not the dancer, but his wife, Gene Simmons.
Gene Simmons from Kiss?
From
Gene Simmons from Kiss.
No, not. She was a very, look her up, G.E. Simmons. She was a very spectacular movie star. And so she was sitting next to me, along with Gene Barry, who you probably don't even know who that is, but he played Bat Masterson. Some of your older viewers will know this. He was a TV series called Bat Masterson and tons of other things. They were both stars in their own right. He more TV, she movie. And she was sitting next to me, smoking, because they allowed it in those days. She was wearing a sheer nylon dress. Well, it doesn't mix. Caught fire.
Oh,
Flame.
no.
And yes. And I put it out with my face. No, I actually put it out with my hand. And I saved
it more like this?
saved her from terrible burns. Yeah, I put it out with my hand. And they were so indebted to me for that they didn't allow pictures on set even back then. You had to get special permission. And, I had a camera and they allowed me to get a picture, but I gave it to this guy who was so envious that he shook the camera when he took it. So we were all blurred. And he apologized for it, but the damage was done. So that was...
You do not have luck with cameras.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. A lot of people on this set that I can't even remember their names were, pretty big names at the time. We got 3 Perry Mason movies before I left for Hollywood. I left at the end of '88. I got here just in time to see the last game of the World Series where they won. I came into town, and 32 years later, here I am. Saw them win again. That's amazing. But anyway, so some of the other things I did there, I did a lot of print, like I said. I did a lot of international, national print. I was with an agent who did that. Denver was the hub of all print. If anybody doesn't know what print is, it's magazines, newspapers, where you're holding up a can of something or, it's a still shot. Mm-hmm. So I worked
or
for
in front of a car.
Pardon?
Or in front of a car. When you're doing the Ford. When you did the Ford.
Sorry. Kind of hard of hearing. But I did Ford. They brought out a new line of beer called Killian's Red, I believe. So I was their spokesman for that, for Coors. And then the funny story about, not that one, but the other one I did, I was a spokesman for Ford. John Madden, the sportscaster, used to throw his script up in the air. He'd get all animated and throw his script up in the air. I thought, I wonder if I can do that in an audition. So I did it, and I got the Ford spot because nobody had ever done that before. So you got to make yourself notice. Anybody out there that's auditioning for things, don't be timid. Go for it. And, it might get you that job. So I threw the script up in the air and, they said, you're the guy that's going to run through the poster. So if anybody remembers back then in the 80s where this guy runs through the poster, there's a poster of me, and then I run through it. And I crash my own appearance. And then I say, you get cash back. I never Ford in stock. That was me. So that ran for quite a while. And so then I went, when I got to Los Angeles, there was something in Backstage West. It was a newspaper at the time. Nothing was digital. It was before computers. And, or just right when they began. So it said, we want a Jackie Gleason lookalike. That was my all-time favorite actor. I never did get to meet him. But I thought, I was a little overweight at the time. I was like 70 pounds heavier than I am. And I thought, I'm going to go and see if I can stack up against some of these big names in Hollywood. because I thought there's no chance I'm going to get this. Yeah, everybody's so damn good. Because I used to do 22 celebrity voices when I came to town, but I could never get the job because somebody's always just a little bit better, more realistic. So I thought, well, it'd be fun to try. So the character's name was Al Purplewood. It's for a movie called A Double D Avenger. And this was my second breakthrough role. This movie went international. But when I went for the audition, I again threw the script up in the air and just babbled. I knew the lines perfectly, so it wasn't the problem where I had to read or look down or anything. And the director was laughing so hard he fell over in his chair on the floor, and I went to pick him up, and he said, "You're the funniest son of a bitch I've ever met in my life. I got 2 men coming for callback tomorrow, but screw them. You got the job." So I got cast on the first read. So that was history. I did over 40 projects with William Winkler after that. Most of them Japanese anime because I do voiceovers. But I did 2 of his features, Double D Avenger, and then later the horror classic, Frankenstein versus the Creature, which was international hit also. That was, it won Best Feature at the World Horror Fest. And so that was my 2 claims to fame, I guess, working with him. And, it was really a great experience. Really
so I'm going over your IMDB page here.
Uh-huh.
And my gosh, it just scrolls and scrolls and scrolls.
I used to
forever.
I know.
Tell me, it says here, Rocky V boxing match attendee.
Yeah.
Now, is that the end scene, or is that one of Tommy Morrison's scenes?
It was
in a match.
Aficionado. Yes, it was right before he announced that he had AIDS, and he never worked again, or very little. So yeah. So
and are you on? You get to be on camera with that, or is that you just?
Yeah, I got a picture with Burt Young, who plays his brother-in-law, and I was right ringside, so I'm there. I used to tell people I was a towel boy, but that's not true. I was actually right at ringside. I was just being funny because I was a lot older in those days. So I was probably in my 40s when I did that. That was his last time, right? That he did Rocky, his last movie. And that was a wonderful experience. I shied away. I could have gotten a picture with Sly too, but I didn't. Sometimes I, get bashful, and it's a curse,
Right.
What can it hurt if you ask? All they can say is no, right? And if you don't ask, it's a no. So
and here's another one of my favorite movies, Eagle Eye.
Yeah, I was one of the what do you call that? The senators on the commission that went to them to beg for a certain proposal. I was one of the things, but actually I was so tired and I fell asleep while they were filming. So when I woke up, the camera was in my face, so they cut that part out. But it was kind of like a blooper reel. So zoomed in on me sleeping while they were actually filming. It's funny. But,
so what do you prefer? Do you prefer comedy? Do you prefer doing the horror genre? What genre do you prefer to look? And do you actually hunt out certain genres to audition for, or are you like just getting emails saying, "Hey, would you like to be in this production?"
That's a very, very good question. I started out in comedy. That's my roots. I'm very good at it. And then in the 80s, I did comedy. In the 90s, I started comedy horror. It was kind of a transition. And then in around the 2000, I started doing straight horror about 2005 and 6, the classic horror. And then I started into drama about 5 years ago. So I crossed over. I've done just about every genre except maybe a musical or something like that. I haven't done a romantic comedy but I actually I used to seek things out if anything that I thought I could do a good job in, because I'm a chameleon. Everybody asks me, what's G stand for G. Larry Butler? And I always say, well, it's goofy. Like, I can be a goofy person, or I can be gruesome. So I can be both. You probably saw it in Downsize, that's my gruesome face. But I've done horror movies that make people's blood run cold because I channel the actual demon that I'm playing. I don't fake anything. I don't act. I even hate that word. It's reacting. It's transforming. I'm a transformative actor. And I always used to tell my class when I taught acting to don't fake anything. Feel it. And because the audience will pull away if they believe that you're faking it. They can see the strings, like you're a mannequin or something. But so anyway, I'll do just about anything, but I think any actor worth their chops wants to do something against type, like Jim Carrey. They don't want him to do drama, so he'll do it. And Sly Stallone wanted to do comedy. And even though they didn't like that, they still try it.
Well, let me tell you, Oscar is one of my favorite movies of all time. Stallone's comedy Oscar is hilarious. Just the way he interacts with the rest of the cast who were comedy geniuses, and I think he fit right in.
I haven't seen that one. I'm talking about the other one he did about the Silver Saddle or something, or he was like a cowboy or something.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, that's was that Rhinestone?
Rhinestone, right?
Yeah.
Much. Yeah. But he wants to try other genres, and we all do. So but I prefer, I think at the moment, horror, just because I'm very good at it, but I like drama too because it's a challenge. And I've done movies where they wanted me to just play myself, and that's the hardest the hardest challenge at all, because the reason I'm an actor, kind of like Robert De Niro said, I'm not comfortable in my own skin. I like to play other things. I want to, play other roles, be other people. And so I'm seeking that. I don't want to play myself. But I did one that's just coming out. It's called It's Just a Game. It's a horror movie. It's about them discovering something that they thought was a game, but it's not really a game. And they summon a witch. It's one of the most gruesome horror movies I've ever been involved in, and I'm playing Larry Butler. So why can't I be one of the bad guys? So anyway, but it's a good movie. And
well, you mentioned the movie Downsized. We actually have a clip from the movie, so let's give that a quick roll and see what that's about.
Mr. Garrity, it's been a real treat working under you. Hell, maybe they'll even hire me as your replacement. But for now, I'm going home to get some goddamn sleep.
Sit down, Murphy!
Hey, what the f*** you asked for?
Motivation.
What the hell are you doing, sir?
Susie, let the minutes show that at 3:27, I put an axe through Alex Murphy's heart.
I just put the axe down, man. What the f***?
You've created a very hostile work environment.
Mr. Garrity, please put down the axe.
Productivity's slipping. Profits are down. The shareholders are always on my back. I'm under a lot of stress.
You won't get away with this. Security is probably on their way up right now.
I made some cutbacks in security.
Oh, God! You f***ing psycho!
Yeah.
Wow. Wasn't that killer?
At the time, a lot of people were losing their jobs. A lot of people could relate to that. So Anyway, it's one of my favorite short films.
So to get into a part like that, is it? You mentioned you summon the inner demons. Now is that something like? Does it become easier when you have a bloody head in the bag and you're holding an axe, and all of a sudden you can feel what the character is like? Is it easier to do it that way, or do you actually see the character in the script when you're reading it?
That's icing on the cake. Actually, I have a lot of venom inside of me because I had a terrible life growing up. I was tormented too much, and so I have a lot of vindictiveness. So I channel it. I don't need therapy anymore. I channel it. I have deep pools of vindictiveness. And I also was in Vietnam 3 years, so I have PTSD pretty badly. And I pull from all of that. Mm-hmm. I used to have a therapist, fired him.
Now you have a director.
Don't need him. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things I talk about today is these young kids, they all think it's so cool to wear a mask. Before a mask, we're in, like don't show expression because that would make you weak. Don't be happy. Don't be sad. Just be blank. And you can't reach them because they can't reach in and dig it out. Now, the older people like us, we have reservoirs of pain and joy and anxiety we can pull from. The problem is trying to reach in and grab it. So in my acting lessons, I used to help them pull it out. And I'm very good at that. I'm a method actor. But I don't live with it. I don't go home and scare the family. If I'm going to roll for 2 weeks, I can drop it. I'm not Val Kilmer, who scares everybody on the planet. But I can stop it. But at the same, when I'm on the set, I get away from other actors. I'm not being antisocial. I'm just inhabiting that person. And so it's better if I stay away.
Right. And that's something that I came across also because I was asked to do a voiceover for an Italian film that they were dubbing into English. And it was just a lot of a lot of that kind of stuff. And I really didn't know how to approach it. And then it just so happened that on my YouTube recommendations popped up Wolverine doing his voiceovers, and him in the studio getting 110% of the character into his growls and stuff. Mm-hmm. Do you find that when you're getting ready to go on set, do you prep for stuff like that, or is it like you sitting there and go like, time to make some cuts? Is that?
That's another great question. I actually do it at home. I'm like Laurence Olivier. He said, being an actor is like putting extra layers on an onion. You start at the heart and you build out. You first inhabit the character, the emotional core, and then you start building the mannerisms and the extra quirks. I like characters with quirks. So you're always, people are fascinated by people with quirks for some strange reason, but you have to make it realistic. It has to come from a real place. And then I practice at home. I even go on auditions in character and with the appropriate clothing. Sometimes they say that's not necessary, but sometimes casting directors have no imagination. You have to help. But anyway, once I get to the set, it's so locked in that I'm like Jack Lemmon. He just says, it's magic time. I'm on. And that's it. All I have to do is push the little button right here. Boom. I'm in. And that's all it takes.
Did you ever get a chance to meet Jack Lemmon?
Pardon?
Did you ever get a chance to meet Jack Lemmon?
I've never worked with him, no, but I've seen him, and I've seen documentaries about him, and he always says it's magic time or showtime, whatever, something like that. But he's a great idol too, and Walter Matthau. Mm. Insane. I love doing stuff like that. I always want to be the slob, not the neat one, but the slobby one. Right. So that's kind the true to life.
That was one of my very first auditions. playing Murray the cop in The Odd Couple at the it was in San Antonio. A guy who was in Policewoman, can't remember his name offhand now for some reason. But anyway, he had a little playhouse. Eat dinner and watch a play. And they were doing The Odd Couple. I auditioned for that. I wanted to be Oscar. I was going for it. I did that in high school, but then he said, "Oh, you can play Murray," and it's kind of turned me off. And I wish I did, but I never did. But yeah, Odd Couple was something that I watched Mathau and Lemon doing, and following their careers. One of my first films of Jack Lemmon was Something Like a Hot.
It's never too late.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
One-man show, or get a partner and put it on anywhere. Do theater, community theater. If you got the bug, go for it. Don't stifle it. So I just love playing odd characters. And it's like most actors like playing villains because they're more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And they're more fun to do rather than the good guy, kind of vanilla character, which I don't like. They say, "No, play yourself." I'm like, oh God, do I have to?
So what do you think about this being the Geek and I? We're into like pop culture and stuff. What do you think about the Marvel Universe films and the DC stuff and all the superhero genre that's out there? Do you go the Scorsese route and say, well, that's not really movie making, or is it a matter of, make what your heart tells you to make, and you'll find an audience, and who cares if person X doesn't like it, person Y is going to love it?
I'm kind of on the fence on that. On one hand, I love anything to do with the Marvel Universe because I used to collect the comics. I still have a lot of them from when I was a kid, and I haven't sold them. I have the original Iron Man and some of the other ones, and I want you to do the movies. I love the movies, but I want them to have heart and soul and conflict resolution. You've got plenty of that. I want relationships. That's what's missing in a lot of today's movies. They have a lot of bang, boom, everything blowing up, but no heart. And I want you to have the relationship. And that's what real life's all about. A lot of people they get a vicarious thrill out of watching the actors emote because they're emotionally constipated and you're helping them. No, it's true. But so I just add a little bit more relationship-driven scenes, and you've got a winner there. And some of the earlier ones didn't have a lot of that. I think now they're catching on. Some of the older people want to see that, and they'd probably come too. Right now, the demographics skewed a little bit to the younger people.
Well, that's what I found about the latest, the big one that was out a couple of years ago, Avengers Endgame, was the first. I mean, it's 3 hours long, but the first hour and a half, there's really nothing that happens except these characters suffering through the results of their failure in the movie before. And to me, that's what made that movie, I could see the big, battle scene at the end. You could see that coming from, the lobby when you're buying your popcorn. Mm-hmm. But it's the emotion of the characters having to wrestle with their failure from the last movie and knowing that half the universe has been snapped away. How do you resolve something like that? And I find myself ever since then kind of shying away from big blockbuster movies and watching these. Like I was watching, I can't for the life of me remember the name of it now, but it was a Chris Evans movie that came out, I think, earlier this year, where it's just him and this woman trying to find her pocketbook. And it was just two people walking down the street acting, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. Slice of life. Yeah, I don't even go to theaters anymore, simply because people don't shut up, and everybody's got a cell phone, and you see the light, and they talk, and they eat, and so I watch them at home in front of my own movie theater. So I used to get in a lot of almost fist fights with people, just like, could you please, oh, screw you, and Oh, so I just I really lock in when I watch a movie as an actor. I really become part of the story. I'm not even aware of my surroundings. So when somebody disrupts that, it makes me very angry. And I guess some of you out there can relate to that. So that's why I just stopped going to movie theaters. I've got a 15-year-old daughter, so once in a while I will go with her and suffer through it.
Right.
But, I'd rather just watch it, in front of my television or whatever.
Right. Yeah. My son and I would, it was every year a Marvel came out, we would be at the theater together. But now he's out. He's in the Marines. I don't have anybody to go to the movies with anymore. So I'm going to wait until it's at home and I can put it on my projector.
Exactly.
110 inches, when you're sitting 3 feet away from it, it's pretty good size. And, I enjoy it much more because I know the bathroom's clean.
No.
I know the popcorn is hot and whose hands have been in it.
Right.
So
you can pause it when you want to, right? You don't miss anything.
Right.
You back, and reach. Well, I missed something. I go back and see it again.
Exactly.
I love it. Fight.
One of the things I've been doing lately, I don't know if you did the VR thing yet, but I got my phone. It came with a free VR unit. And I put the headphones on and the phone inside the VR unit, and there's a movie theater mode. And I swear to you, it's just like being in the movie theaters. You're looking around. It's like, wow. And then you're by yourself because it's all empty theater. And it's like having your own personal movie theater by yourself. And one of the first things I decided to do was watch Psycho because,
Wow.
the master himself, I had to see that by myself in a lone movie theater because I never did that before.
You're a brave man, Jeff. I would have been like this the whole time. Like you hear a noise behind you, like all alone.
Trust me, I did look around a couple of times out of just natural instinct.
Well, anything coming up in the future? You mentioned the Courtney Gaines movie. That just wrapped, I assumed, right?
Yeah, Bleeding Dark, directed by Jason Hawkins. It's fantastic. Great crew, great cast. Couldn't ask for a better time. Beautiful scenery. I think that's one of the stars of the film. Kind of like Legends of the Fall, with a beautiful scenery. And it's just one of these great I don't want to spoil it, but if Jeff was talking about Psycho, well, it's along that line, something like that. But you'll love it when you see it. So anyway, there's a great couple of actors coming up, probably unknown at this time. First one's Sebastian, forgot his last name, but you go to IMDb, and he's a great kid. He plays the son. Courtney plays the father. And I was a deputy sheriff in that movie, so another good guy. But it's worth it. It really is. I did another one. I've done several with James Balsamo, if you're familiar with that name. We're doing one now called Hollywood Werewolf, which I just love his wry sense of humor. And it's about an actor who becomes a werewolf. I play his sleazy manager, and I also play the sax at the same time. So I had to dust out my saxophone. I used to be a really good sax player in high school 50 years ago. And he said, get it out and learn a couple of songs. So I did. And I was playing my sax at 1:00 in the afternoon downtown at this big apartment building where he lives. We're outside in the lawn area in front. This guy comes out of the building screaming and yelling that, you woke us all up. What the hell is wrong with you? And he pointed at me, and that guy sucks. Well, I didn't used to suck, but I guess
That's when you say, no, sir, it's a saxophone. I blow.
yeah, all right. I wasn't thinking. Anyway, he was ready to fight somebody, and James almost got in with it. But yeah, they almost duked it out. But I had to agree. I'm not very good anymore. But it was the thought. That's actually what James wanted. This guy wasn't very good, but he plays it anyway. That's part of the fun. And he only knows 2 songs. He's playing an hour. He's at night when the moon is full and the werewolf's killing everybody, and it's just a lot of fun. And recently, I did a scene with Andy Dick, if you're familiar with him, and so that's kind of cool. And so he's going to play the werewolf. It's going to be a great movie. And then there's some other ones coming up. I just got back from Clown Motel 2 in Nevada at this Tonopah, and then later on down near Boulder City in Nevada, in this cave system. I play the ritual clown, I think it's called, but it's like the high priest of the clowns. I'm very satanic. And I made up my own prayer. I wrote it out and performed it. It was a mixture of English, Latin, and Gaelic, and came out really well. So I can't wait to see the movie on that. And so there's some other ones coming up. I'm going to be in another James Balsamo movie. And then Victor Ayercon is going to be a producer on a film, and trying to figure out what some of these are, but they're not on IMDb yet, but I haven't done them yet either. It's next month.
Right. Well, we had Bill on the show a couple of weeks back talking about his
you probably know what it is.
His movie coming up.
Anyway, Alien Anger or something like that.
Yeah, something about aliens.
Yeah, so they tagged me to do that. I don't know what the role is yet. And then there's another one called Appetite for Sin. It's my first vampire movie. I've never done one. I'm doing currently a comedy about vampires called The Vamps Next Door. I play the old man. I play an 85-year-old neighborhood watch guy who spies on everybody with binoculars, and he's kind of like Barney Fife. He shovels around and tells people, your lawn's too tall. And so he finds out there's vampires living next door. And so it's kind of funny.
So he's the lead of the HOA.
Something like that. Yes. Trying to, force everybody to live to standards, and, and of course I'm quite shocked that there's vampires, and they kill just about everybody. They make everybody vampires except for me so far. There's always each series, each episode, there's a new vampire added to the list. But so I'm doing that, but I've never done a serious one, like a horror movie about a vampire. So this will be fun. I played a police captain in that one.
We thank you for coming on today and discussing all your history and your upcomings, and whenever you have your next project coming out to release, we'd love to have you back to talk about it.
Thanks for having me.
And if there's anything you ever want to discuss, or you need to get off your chest, or you just feel like shooting a breeze with a couple of geeks, get in contact with Jeff or I, and Jeff or me, and we'll be happy to sit down and talk the history of film.
Yeah, we just scratched the surface, so there's a lot of things I could talk about. I have things that don't even relate to acting. Like I'm a mountain climber. I was a skydiver for 30 years, and I do a lot of things. I was a spelunker. I was a scuba diver, and did all those things. Love dangerous, adrenaline-fueled things like that. So.
Well, that's the point of the show. Now, it's called The Geek and I, but the way I phrase geek is anything that anybody is passionate about and you geek over. It could be your pets. It could be the watch that you're wearing, if you have a watch collection, or, you love cars, you like comedy, you like to cook. It's anything that anybody would geek over. And it's not pointed directly at comics and movies and superheroes and stuff like that. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend a few minutes with us and introduce you to our audience. And we look forward to getting together again very, very soon. Thank you very much, sir. Jeff, you want to say anything?
A pleasure. Yeah, great having me. Thanks.
I appreciate you, sir, for crossing pathways with you, because it wasn't for you and our pathways crossing, I wouldn't be where I'm at currently because of the inspiration you give. You touch my heart in a way that I can't begin to say, but thank you, sir, for everything you've given me, especially your friendship and kindness.
Oh, likewise. Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Yes, Larry Butler, everybody, on the Geek and I podcast. with John and Jeff. Just a reminder, we are part of the Geek News Now podcast network. Visit them online at geeknewsnow.net for everything in the news that is all geeky and no clickbait, so you don't have to worry about, just random emails and text messages. It's a very, very safe website to go to geek out, geeknewsnow.net. We are sponsored by Sumner Twins Talent. You can find them online at facebook.com/Sumner Twins. And we are also sponsored by Metallic Dice Games. Go to metallicdicegames.com for everything you need for your gaming experience. Use code GNN at checkout and save 10%. And you can find me and Jeff on Facebook at facebook.com/The Geek and I Podcast /Geek and I Podcast. And Jeff, tell them what other channels that you are available on online if folks wanted to check out some of your other stuff.
Well, always go to the Collector Zone. That's where my passion of collecting in all sorts of ways takes place. And I do also have my after show on that channel as well for the Geek and I. So join me on that channel for that.
All right, yes, the Geek and I After the Show with Jeff Dickinson. That will be premiering a little bit later on the Collector Zone YouTube channel. You can just Google Collector Zone YouTube, and it should take you right there. So for this episode of the Geek and I Podcast, I am Captain John Luke Picard. And who are you in the...
Oh, I am just a evil dude that loves pop culture. So, as always, we'll catch you on the next one.